Did you know that your brain moves through energy cycles every 90 minutes, whether you honour them or recognise them or not? Welcome back to Freedom from the Desk. I'm Nicola Brunton. So today I'm going to start a really short little series of the laws of. And today we're going to talk about the laws of rhythm. So this little series that I'm going to do is I wanted to talk about the laws of. And as I said, today we're going to talk about the law of rhythm and the idea that our life and everything actually moves in cycles. Our energy, our creativity, our motivation, our business, nothing kind of stays on time, for want of a better term. And I do that in air quotes if you're listening on a podcast, because I think our focus as human beings and as business owners is that everything is so time focused. So I think the law of rhythm is a really nice one to start with in these series. So I'm going to keep these short, under 10 minutes, I promise. And for the next few weeks, I'm not sure how long I'll go for. I'll just pick ones out that will be good to share and probably align with us as business owners, and ones that we can apply in life as well. So if that's something that interests you, hang around and you'll pick up some great tips and some information as well, which is what I want to do these little series fundamentally about. Just sharing information and sparking that little knowledge flame that we all need to investigate. So let's get stuck in. So the law of rhythm, how did this come into being? Where is it from? What are the roots of it? The law of rhythm originally actually comes from the ancient Hermetic philosophy. Big mouthful. So the idea that life has natural tides and seasons, which kind of makes sense. But what's interesting is that modern psychology and neuroscience and even biology have confirmed this as well, in their own way. And as an example of that, so you can kind of see how this aligns, the law of rhythm brings into existence things like the circadian rhythm. So our 24-hour energy and hormone cycles. People talk about the circadian rhythm when they're having trouble sleeping. Or shift workers are particularly susceptible to circadian rhythms and ultradian rhythms. So that's the 90 to 120 second minute focus and rest cycles that we move through all day, every day. 90 to 120 minutes. Basically, there's a rhythm happening naturally within our body. And creative cycles. And this is where it probably comes into play for me and as business owners. So creative cycles, a study was done where it showed that we actually oscillate between deep focus and incubation. And emotional waves, Brene Brown talks about how emotional energy that we store expands and contracts and how we need both vulnerability and recovery for those types of energy. And lastly, motivation cycles. We all have them, right? But behavioral scientists like BJ Fogg, Andrew Huberman explain that motivation isn't consistent and it naturally ebbs and flows. So this law isn't the law of the universe, it's the law of actually being a human being human and recognizing this law of rhythm that we actually all experience. So what does this actually look like in real life? It's those days when you are on fire. You know what you want. You have a real direction. You get lots of shit done. You're full of ideas. You have a sense of momentum and clarity. And then on other days, you just feel flat. You just feel like someone's literally knocked the stuffing out of you and you do not want to do anything. So this isn't wrong. It's actually just a different part of the cycle. And it might be one of those cycles that we've just talked about. So the law of rhythm actually reminds us that high energy doesn't last forever. Like they say, the higher the high, the lower the low. And low energy doesn't last the same either. Sometimes we'll wake up in the morning and we'll be full of beans. And then other days we'll just kind of think, I just don't have the energy towards it. So this is our natural rhythm, finding our natural rhythm. And sometimes it's out of rhythm as well. But both the highs and the lows are absolutely necessary. And think of it like nature as an example, if I can use this. Nothing grows 365 days a year. It's not consistent. It's not this consistent line of energy flowing in. It's ebbs and flows, ups and downs. So, like a flower, you might be going through a season. There's a bloom and then there's a rest. There's an expansion and then there's a contraction. There's momentum and there's reflection. Nature's a really good way of putting this into perspective when you look at weather patterns, when you look at things growing, wonders of the world like the weather and things like that. It's very much that high and low ebb and flow system. And I think the important thing to remember here is that nature does it beautifully and naturally, and we could all admire it. But as human beings, and when we're actually in business, we actually expect ourselves to stay in a certain season or summer mode all year long, going and going and going and going and going. And this is where burnout happens, and this is where breakdowns happen, is because we don't allow ourselves to actually go through this law of rhythm. So, as I've said, creativity has seasons. Some days our ideas just ooze out of us, and other days there's a lot of stillness and inspiration that happens. But both are part of the rhythm. Motivation, like I said, comes in waves. We beat ourselves up when we lose momentum, but motivation it's not a personality trait, it's actually a cycle. And I think that's something to take away from this. Motivation is not a personality trait. It's a cycle in ourselves. So motivation comes in waves. We can't just turn it on. And remember, you're not broken. You're human. It's part of being human. Discipline works best when you actually respect your rhythm. So pushing non-stop will lead to burnout, like I touched on before. And working with your rhythm actually leads to flow. So it's really good to map your rhythm if you can. Business growth has cycles. There are seasons to building, seasons to visibility, seasons to learning, and of course, seasons of rest. And again, your business isn't failing, it's going through a cycle. They talk about businesses having a startup phase, and that's exactly right. A lot happens in the startup phase. And then, so businesses like us go through cycles, and it's something that needs to be remembered and explained. And of course, emotional issue. Everybody has an emotional issue, and it's kind of best described as like a tide. So some days the tide is in, and some days the tide is out. Some days you're open, confident, and expressive, and yet other days you just need to be quiet. We've all had the conversation with our partners probably, or husband and wife, that say, oh, you seem a bit off today, what's wrong? Oh no, I just feel a bit down. Or they're all full of beans in action, and it's like, oh man, who wound you up? It's those rhythms come through in how we express ourselves and what we do as well. But again, nothing is wrong. I don't think we need to label this. It's just a rhythm, the law of rhythm. So some practical ways you can actually work with rhythm, and just try to be very gentle. Nothing big, nothing out of the ordinary. This is more about just recognizing it and seeing it. So tip number 1, notice your personal energy pattern. Are you more get up and go in the morning? Do you feel more alive in the morning? Do you get creative at night? Do you have a mid-afternoon dip? I personally do my best work at nighttime. I love getting up early, but it's not when I'm the most productive. I do a lot of reading. I do just having a lot of time out in the morning. Sometimes I try and do a meditation, not as often as I'd like. But for me, while it would appear, because I like to get up early, actually my creative moment is actually at nighttime. So just look for things like that. And your body is the biggest indicator as well, when you try and do something that's not naturally in your rhythm. So number 2 is micro rests. You see this a lot in workplace now. Well, It should be more ingrained in the workplace, I should say. But particularly places in Europe and overseas have little micro rests where you take a 5 minute break every 90 minutes to actually help your brain reset. Because, as we touched on earlier, it actually goes through a full rhythm every 60 to 90 minutes. So again, if you're not honouring that, you're pushing against it, you're not going to get the best work out of you. And number 3, honour your slow days. We all have them. So instead of forcing through it and feeling worse for it, choose the next smallest step. So slow days often lead to breakthrough days as well. It's the law of rhythm. And the law of rhythm teaches us that life isn't meant to be linear. Absolutely not. So we shouldn't be trying to cram it into something that doesn't feel right for us as far as a rhythm goes. And you're not supposed to feel the same every day. Absolutely not. We're not robots. Momentum is a wave, and when you work with it instead of going against it, you move further with less resistance. And again, the nature narrative here, when you look at waves in the ocean, they don't come exactly the same time, and some are bigger, some are smaller. So when you're trying to find your rhythm and your law of rhythm, just think about how nature behaves. So I hope this episode has been helpful, insightful, just a tiny little bit of information. I wanted to keep this short and succinct and on point. I'm going to have more in the series just as we lead into Christmas of 2025. Short, simple, grounded conversations about the principles that can help shape our mindset, business, and well-being. So if you're watching me on YouTube, hello, and thank you for sticking around till the end. I would love a subscribe, a like. So until next week, have an awesome day.